Now, how about customizing Illustrator's interface? We can pretty much customize whatever we want here inside Illustrator CS4. For example, my palettes here. I'm going to click on that gray bar and go back into the expanded view mode here. What I could do if I wanted to is I could tear some of these palettes away from the right-hand side. So I'm just going to grab the palette tab right up at the top. It doesn't matter what palette. This is the same for all of the palettes here inside Illustrator. And I'm just going to click and drag on that tab and tear that guy away. Now he's floating in the middle of my screen here. I'll hit the X in the top right corner. That closes them out. So all you do is you grab the tab, pull them way out. I could actually drag on this top gray bar if I wanted to, move them around wherever I want to. Again, things are completely customizable here inside Illustrator. I could even drop these guys way over on the left-hand side if I wanted to. So now I could have this effect. If I wanted to, I could take the gradient palette and drag him into the swatches palette, something like this. I'll see a blue frame show up there. That means if I let go of my mouse, the two palettes are now connected together inside what we would call a palette group. So the entire Illustrator interface is customizable here. I can rearrange things and sort things out however I want. Maybe I want to put symbols inside my stroke palette, for example, something like that, and move them down here. Maybe I'll grab my layers and drop him in with color, something like that. I can do whatever I want. So as you work more and more with Illustrator, you'll get a feel for what palettes you want to use and what palettes seem to go with other palettes. You can set things up however you like. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch back to my Essentials workspace here, just by choosing Essentials from the drop-down menu up on the application bar. That takes me all the way back to where I started. And maybe I decide I want to create my own custom workspace. So I'll expand things out here a little bit. And I'll start doing some rearranging. I'm going to take my Appearance palette and my Layers palette. I'll drop them into the same palette group. I'll put the Stroke up with the Color and the Color Guide. I'll drop Swatches in there as well. Brushes I'm not going to use, so I'll close him. Symbols I'm not going to use. I'll close him as well. Gradient can go into the Swatches group up at the top. Transparency, I'll close him. So what I'm doing here is I'm sort of customizing things to my own personal taste. So I'm going to wind up with something like this. Wonderful. Now, this is how I want to keep Illustrator's interface. In other words, the next time I fire up Illustrator, I want it to look exactly the way that I've set it up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my layout. I'm going to save my workspace here, and that way I can retrieve it whenever I want. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to head to my window menu here up at the top and down to Workspace, and then all the way down to Save Workspace. So I'll give my workspace a name here. I will click on OK. Now I'll see my workspace get added to the drop-down menu at the top. There he is there. So at any time, I can go and retrieve my saved workspace, and I'm right back to where I was. By the way, I should mention as well, any palettes that you close are available from the window menu way up at the top. For example, I had closed my Brushes palette quite a while back. There he is there. I can always go back and find my palettes underneath the window menu. Or I could choose a palette that's already hidden somewhere on screen, and that'll bring it to the front of the palette group, ready for use. Okay, so there's how to create your own custom workspaces. What else can I customize here inside Illustrator? Well, how about some keyboard shortcuts? Here's a command that I use quite often. I love this command, but there's no keyboard shortcut for him. And he's buried deep inside Illustrator's menus. He's found underneath Object, and then down to Path, and then Cleanup. And what this guy will do is clean up any stray points or stray paths inside my artwork. So there's no keyboard shortcut for him there. I can see in the menu there's no keyboard shortcut set for this guy. So I'm going to go and set one of my own. So how do you do it? Well, I'm going to go up to the Edit menu inside Illustrator and all the way down to Keyboard Shortcuts. That brings up my Keyboard Shortcuts dialog box. Make sure your menu up at the top is set to Menu Commands. And that cleanup command was found underneath Object, Path, and there's Cleanup right there. No menu command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click inside this shortcut column here, and I'm going to type in a new shortcut for this cleanup command. I'll try Control-Shift-1, or if you're on the Mac, you could try Command-Shift-1. That'll lock that in for that command. Of course, alternatively, I could remove a shortcut from an existing command, maybe join up here. I could highlight him, and then I could choose Clear down at the bottom. Now, notice as soon as I added in my cleanup shortcut, The keyboard shortcut set way up at the top of the dialog box has now been changed. It's now set to custom. It was Illustrator defaults before. So I'm going to click on Save here, and I'll name this as well, Jeff's Shortcuts. And by the way, you know what I could do is I could click on Export Text. And what that would do is export a text-based file listing out all of the keyboard shortcuts that I have set here inside Illustrator. And of course, that's a printable list as well. Okay, great. I'm going to click on OK here. Let's see if it actually worked. I'm going to go back to Object, down to Path, and sure enough, Control-Shift-1 has now been set for cleanup. So there you go. There's how you can customize Illustrator's keyboard shortcuts as well as creating your own workspaces.